We'd like to affirm our commitment to building Bolivarian socialism and socialism around the world. That's our cause. A better world is possible. People of the world must unite to fight imperialism and achieve a definitive victory. Greetings to all of our siblings and comrades in the struggle who are in the land of Angela Davis. We're from a rural area, part of the peasant movement, and we affirm our commitment to President Maduro. And we're facing a multifactorial blockade imposed on us by the U.S. government.
These are the part of the problems that we have due to these illegal, coercive, unilateral measures. I mean, one of the things that we begin always by saying and stressing, we don't call them sanctions, because sanctions implies that you did something wrong and somehow they have a right to punish you because something that you did wrong, and this is not true. I mean, we're not being there's no legal basis for this. I mean, one of the, so we often tell people that, so that they know that the only acceptable sanctions under international law are those applied by the United Nations Security Council. Anything else is a unilateral measure, which is illegal, which is it could constitute an act of war. And when you have consequences, such as the consequences you have here in Venezuela, where you have that we say, there's it's a form of collective punishment, where a whole population is affected because of measures taken by another government. Well, those are considered crimes against humanity, and there's also statutes in international law that are supposed to take measures against this. The point is, when we talk about this issue, and sort of the message I want to get across, because I know you talk to a lot of people who are often skeptical, who often have criticisms or not understanding what they don't even agree with, politically or ideologically where Venezuela stands. See, the thing is that we're not asking, in a sense, that you support us ideologically, that you believe in socialism, that you believe in President Maduro or like him as a person or as a president. The issue here is that these measures that are being taken are against international law. These are not legal. It doesn't matter what you think or believe about the Venezuelan government. What is true though is that what the United States is doing is something against law, and it's something that hurts people, and it hurts people in many ways, like Lorena, of course, also expressed, and our friends here. Just at the end of the middle of February, sorry, we had a visit of the UN Special Rapporteur for the negative impact of unilateral coercive measures against or on the enjoyment of human rights, Ms. Alena Duhan, and here. She issued a brief report on her initial findings, and I think it's very important to look at what she said, because she, in a way, she summed up that these measures are completely illegal. The U.S. actually never questioned or never replies to that issue of the legality or not of these measures. They'll go and say, well, yeah, what the hardships in Venezuela are not the fault of the sanctions. They are it's the president who's to blame, or it's the government who's to blame, but they never really enter into the issue of whether these measures that they take are legal or not, and that's because they're not, and because there's no defense to this issue. When you look at the findings of Ms. Duhan, she explicitly says that unilateral sanctions against I'm quoting this from her statement. She underlines that the unilateral sanctions against oil, gold, mining, and other economic sectors, the state-owned airline, and the TV industry constitute a violation of international law, and their wrongfulness is not excluded with reference to countermeasures. The announced purpose of the maximum pressure campaign, which is to change the government of Venezuela, violates the principle of sovereign equality of states and constitutes an intervention in the domestic affairs of Venezuela that also affects its regional relations. Why am I quoting this? Because I think it's important for us to understand that the United Nations, in the person of these special rapporteurs, have analyzed, have seen, because they came here, they saw all the, they've seen all the documentation, they've seen all the executive orders, they've seen all the measures that have been taken. And comparing this with international law, they come to the conclusion these are in violation of international law. And this is something very important for people to understand, and also to talk about this. Now, I think that one of the most serious problems of these measures is that they don't. It's not only what is said or what is written or literally written in any of these executive orders, but actually when it comes to implementing these unilateral coercive measures, how they get implemented, and the issue of overcompliance, being that banks, companies, different actors feel a pressure that at the time that they're going to have any relation or business or anything to do with Venezuela, to the point that they'd rather not get involved, not engage Venezuela because of the fear that something might happen to them. So it's not. So the problem here, the effects on Venezuela is not because of compliance, but because of over compliance of entities that feel that they're going to get hit far worse. I'll give you an example, which is very important for our current situation with the issue of the the COVID-19 vaccines and all the taking care of the COVID-19. Any country in the rest, around the world that is not under the sanctions regime of any sort can go to the market and buy protective equipment, buy medicine, in any shape or form, and that will be, they will just pay the price that they need to pay, and that would say it's an easy transaction. In Venezuela, you hit the problem that some of these companies are not interested in selling to us because they believe that selling will have these reprisals. So they don't want to risk getting punishment or losing other business that they have in the United States by selling something to Venezuela. So that narrows down our capabilities of buying something to very few companies. These very few companies, knowing the disadvantage that we have, then they spike up prices and make it even more difficult, more expensive for us to purchase whatever we need to purchase. But even then, when we do find these companies that we're able to purchase from, then comes another problem, which is the fact that we are blocked from the U.S. financial system. So transactions such as a deposit or just a payment are blocked within the banking system. We may send the payment and it could be frozen, it could be sent back. Right now we have around the world, but mostly in the U.S. Financial system, we have around $7 billion that are literally frozen. This is money from the Venezuelan people, it's money from the Venezuelan state that we cannot move, we cannot use to purchase medicine or to do anything that we want because they are under this blockade. So, and this is not because it says explicitly on any of the executive orders, you have to, ban Venezuelan transactions, but rather because it says that if they've issued warnings. They started the first warning in 2017, where they said any money coming from the Venezuelan state, from the Venezuelan government, could be product of illicit activities. Therefore, you should be careful of how you handle the money, and you should make sure that you look into those finances so that you can verify where it comes from. What that implies is we had banks accounts closed, we had again these accounts frozen, all these difficulties, so that we were able to somehow carry out normal purchases and normal transactions on behalf of the Venezuelan government. Why is this important? Because for anytime you approach the U.S. government on this and you say, well, look, the sanctions are affecting the Venezuelan people, the sanctions are hurting how people are getting fed, how people are getting, access to medicine, they'll say, well, no, that's not true, because in the sanctions, there are provisions that say that, healthcare, medicine, food, these are not supposed to be sanctions. But that's not true. Because fine, they'll say that food is not on the sanction list, but when you realize, like our friend said, that they can make a purchase of fertilizer, then you're blocking food production. If the gasoline gasoline components can enter the country, you're blocking food production in a sense as well. So these are issues that take place. And in the when you look at there's letters that have been written by by members of Congress There's one letter on February 11, 2021, which literally says the following. This is promoted by Ilan Omar and Chuy Garcia and Elizabeth Warren. It says, existing protocols and licenses have proved woefully insufficient to meet the enormity of the challenges shared by the people around the world in the face of the pandemic. Even when licenses and humanitarian exemptions are available, moreover, there is a persistent problem of over-compliance, particularly from the financial sector. This has led to catastrophic humanitarian consequences in various parts of the world. This is not Venezuela saying this. This is a group of US lawmakers recognizing that this is an issue. The GAO report that was commissioned by House Foreign Affairs Committee by Gregory Meeks also said that, called the attention to the impact, the negative impact of these sanctions. And I quote, according to the experts we interviewed and literature we reviewed, U.S. sanctions have had a negative impact on the already declining Venezuelan economy. Due to the U.S. sanctions, fewer buyers are willing to purchase Venezuelan crude oil, and those who do will only purchase it at heavy discount. In addition, Venezuela now has to transport its crude oil to countries farther away than the United States, which increases transportation costs. And as a result, the Maduro government is collecting less oil export revenue by selling less crude oil at a higher cost and a lower price. Sanctions has also affected the availability of diluents needed to blend Venezuelan heavy crude, which Venezuela previously imported from the United States. This is important, again, because if we don't have fuel, if, it also has an impact on how we produce food, how we, tend to emergencies, how we can get around the country. Again, the issue here, and what I want to leave you, and of course, I'm sure will have questions and answers that we can hopefully reply. But the big issue here is these measures are illegal. These measures are against international law. There's no legal basis under which these measures can be taken. We have to go back to diplomacy or to another way of interacting with the United States. But the United States government cannot keep on exerting this type of pressure on the people of Venezuela, because this is not hurting one group, this is not hurting one person, this is not hurting one president, this is hurting a whole general population, and this is something that is simply not fair and not just.